Everyone, and welcome to today's session, Blockchain for Industry 4.0, a complete review. I am Preetama Chatterjee, and I'll be your host for the day. Our speakers for today's session are David Palmer, Blockchain Lead IoT, Vodafone Business, and Sjanie Bijl, Global Account Managers, Vodafone Global Enterprises. Please note the session will be on listen-only mode for about 40 to 50 minutes, out of which the last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. Requesting all our participants to post your questions in our Q&A window. Also, there will be two criteria for getting the certificate of attendance for this session. Firstly, you have to participate and attend the full session that includes the Q&A. You will also be receiving a survey form from EC Council tomorrow. Answer the three questions that has been given to us by our speakers, which will be based on this particular session. Give correct answers to all the three questions, and you will be receiving your certificate of attendance within 5 to 6 business.
So about our speakers today, David Palmer is Vodafone Business IoT lead for blockchain. He has worked in IoT for 10 years and has been instrumental in the Vodafone business assessment and exploration of blockchain technology and its potential to add value in IoT ecosystem. More recently, David has been exploring the application and integration of finance, payment, and telco and technology in the emerging transition from IoT to economy of things. Sjanie is the Global Account Director for Vodafone Global Enterprise, international public sector responsible for European Commission. She is helping public organizations succeed in digital world with an expertise in connectivity leading to IoT platform and Vodafone global scale. She supports delivering outcome-based results that organizations need to progress and thrive. Without further delay, let me hand over the session to you, David and Sjanie. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So digital transformation affects our lives in many ways, and we live in exciting times. And it's really a way to help people to get rid of intermediaries, and users can now do things independently using a lot of different technologies. Often people wonder, what is happening and what is Industry 4.0? And during this European Council Cyber Talks, David and I will talk about Industry 4.0, what it is, about the ecosystem, and how it will shape our future. And we will talk about use cases in agriculture, in health, about smart factories, finance, digital identity, and the economy of things. And David, can you please start with an overview of Industry 4.0?
Yes, so Industry 4.0, are we going to go to the slide, the next slide?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, the Industry 4.0 is basically termed as the fourth industrial revolution. So in manufacturing especially, we're starting to look at how technologies and manufacturing can come together to increase automation. So if you look at the sort of slide we have here, you have technologies like big data analytics. So that is where data is moving from reactive data, where data is there for record keeping, to where data is being used in the manufacturing process for analysis, diagnostics, and even predictive uses. And then we have technologies like 3D printing, robotic process automation, virtual reality, which is talking about a sort of interactive or simulated experience, and augmented reality. And then you look at these technologies coming together, Internet of Things, and indeed blockchain. And I suppose the discussion today is about how these things have come together, and how these technologies can come together in the future to reset the automation boundary for industry and manufacturing. And just wanted to really look at the Internet of Things. So I've been working in M2M, now the Internet of Things, for 10 years. And when we started off, it was more about connecting devices and how we could connect these devices, how we could digitize them to produce data. And this ranged from connected cabinets, cars, now we have drones, other smart city sensors. And the importance of it is really about how you connect the world, especially in a sort of manufacturing to supply chain to smart city context. And now, if you look at the numbers, I think we're about 40 million connected devices now. But I think the estimates in the next 5 to 7 years are up to 70 billion connected IoT devices. And I think we could actually exceed that, because on the one hand, you have estimates that each person will have 10 connected devices. But in business, where I think it's more relevant for Industry 4.0, you're starting to see the connected devices, the data they produce, and the interactiveness of these devices really begin to integrate into business models. And I think with COVID, especially over the past sort of 12, 14 months, we've seen an acceleration of sort of 2 to 5 years of the Internet of Things emerging, and the use of data, especially in the vaccine distribution, etc. So the Internet of Things is largely about connected devices, producing data, and that data being managed for organizations. And of course, we then go into the industrial Internet of Things, which is where these sensors and connected devices and data are feeding into the manufacturing process. When we look at IoT and how it supports different use cases, one of them is obviously the sort of connected farm. And in this sort of example, you have specifics of agricultural drones which are connected. You have plant sensors, agrobots, small tractors, farming data, all connected using, in this case, Vodafone connectivity. We also include the precise positioning, and what this actually does, it allows the farmer to automate the agricultural process from seed to harvest. And in this case, you have the sensors on the plants, making sure it's getting enough light, making sure it's getting enough water, so that the growing process can be perfected. But more importantly, that data and the estimates on harvest can be communicated to buyers and supply chains, so they can plan as well. Yeah, the drone in this case providing a visual view to support that data. Another side of it, again, building on the Internet of Things, it is really about it's really about the Internet of Things, again, providing connectivity, providing data to devices. But in this case, it's slightly different, because you have connected people, or connected, the connected human, who with a smartphone and or a smartwatch or both, can provide ongoing data on health, health data, health status. But then linked to that, you can have supply chains linked to that, monitoring linked to that, assistance and procedures, planning based on that information. So you start to get a smart supply chain of health, which with data running from end to end, helping to plan. And we again, we've seen with the recent pandemic, the use of connected supply chains in ensuring that vaccines are kept at the right temperature, that they're hopefully in the right place at the right time. But when you start looking at this in a more normal environment, you're seeing that the data that is produced from a connected person, and connected manufacturing feeding into supply chains, can really bring about new levels of automation in healthcare.
And this use case is about the Internet of Production. So the example here is a car manufacturer in Germany, in Aachen. And this is about a very small electric car that's manufactured in one of the most advanced production facilities worldwide. And the production is based on the Industry 4.0 approach, the complete digital integration of all production devices. And the micro factory is one of the first to be ready with 5G technology. And it's part of a digital platform that we call the Internet of Production. And on this platform, all processes in the production cycle, in the development cycle, and during the product innovation, and in the user cycle, they are all fully integrated. So the Internet of Production controls and stores the history of every move and every part, from the vehicle creation to reconditioning it and to the renewal. And this transparency of data from development to innovative production enables very efficient manufacturing, even for small volumes. So this enables the manufacturing to be faster and efficient, and also can respond to changes more quickly. And also the philosophy of micro factories, instead of the mega factories, they are, low cost, and they can put up additional factories really quickly, even in countries where they don't have an established infrastructure yet. And this microfactory has got an MPN, which means a mobile private network, which is a combination with a public network and the IT network of the car manufacturer. And this, when you have both public and private connectivity, then this gives you, higher speeds and more reliability, but also better quality of service, and the operations can be streamlined. That processes which are not that important can be done in downtime. And it's a great example that combines, technology with sustainability, and the digital platform, helps seamlessly integrate the manufacturer cycle, the product life cycle, and also adding the user to this. And David, can you now explain about blockchain?
Sure. We go to the next slide. So I suppose the talk today, we've spoken a lot about Industry 4.0, and basically replayed some of what you may know. So we know that factories are getting automated. We know that data is being produced now on a level that it hasn't in the last 50 years. Indeed, most of the world's data have been produced in the last 5 years. And when we know that these technologies are coming together at a pace that is unparalleled. And I suppose the question now is, what is blockchain, and how can this play a role, going forwards in Industry 4.0? We understand about data analytics. We understand about AI and the importance of that. We understand about robotic process automation. We understand about VR, AR, but what about blockchain? So what is blockchain? So blockchain at its very simplest is a sort of chain of historical records. Where a transaction is to be added to a blockchain, that transaction needs to be validated. So that is validated using a consensus algorithm. And that depends on the type of blockchain you have and the type of consensus algorithm you're using. But at its most basic, there'll be a validation of the transaction. Once that transaction is validated, then it will be the block will be added to the chain. The block with that transaction information will be added to the chain, and then at its simplest, in a public full broadcast blockchain, it will be published to everyone in the chain. And then that is blockchain. Why is it important? It provides trust. Where you have an internal organization, internal factory, internal industry, then there's trust there. But where you're starting to get dynamic supply chains, linking with dynamic inventory, linking with dynamic production, linking with dynamic raw material production, then if that's going to be dynamic, sometimes you don't know or have a trust contract with the entity there. And that's where blockchain comes in, because blockchain is immutable, because the records are historical, time-stamped, and cannot be changed. You know, there is the basis for trust provided by that blockchain, and that is the very, in its very simplest term. If you actually look at a lot of the processes we have, the friction comes because we don't trust each other. So if you go to the airport, why do you have to show your passport 5 times? It's because they don't trust, right? You know, you need to be in a position to produce that document each time. The same thing in business. Why are there credit checks? Why are there multiple checks at some things where it needs to be? It's because you don't have trust. So the potential of introducing trust to industry has the potential inherently to increase the potential for automating processes. The other thing is identity. So in fact, I'll go to the next one first. So I'll just say digital automation. Sorry, not the previous slide. I haven't finished on that one. So apologies. So the other side of it is digital automation, which is smart contracts. Very, very important, because essentially what that's doing is providing the potential for entities in business, in industry, in supply chains, in production, to be able to automate transactions with each other, zero touch. So the smart contract is a very important feature of blockchain, as is the ability to have digital money or digital currency, which can be executed based on the terms of a smart contract automatically. And the other one is digital identity, which is probably along with provenance supply chains, the biggest use case in sort of industrial blockchain. And this is where organizations and indeed people can have digital identities that they control. So I mentioned the passport before, but it could be a company's credit score. It could be other information which can be part of a company identity or a person's identity. And the point here is that if it's on the blockchain, it's distributed. So it's trusted. The attesters of the information in it, so it could can then validate that. And once that's verified, then essentially anyone who wants a claim or to see it can automatically see that. So digital identity, a big area as well. And then there's different types of blockchains. So you've got public blockchains versus permission versus hybrid. Public blockchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum are sort of the biggest and most well known. And then this means anybody can be a part of that blockchain. Anybody can use it. Anybody can be a part of the ecosystem. Permission blockchains tend to be faster. They tend to be more secure, and they tend to therefore be used in business and enterprise more. And you have protocols, Hyperledger Fabric, in the Aries, coming up, who are examples of permission blockchains, as well as some of the permission blockchains on Ethereum. And then you have hybrid, and the hybrid blockchains are emerging, where you have essentially some part of the blockchain which is controlled, but then some parts which are open to the public, and that is emerging now as a sort of compromise between the two. In terms of consensus, we spoke about the validation being key to blockchains to trust the information going in there, and those validations, there's different ways of getting consensus. The most popular is proof of work, which is common on the and this is where you have miners who are rewarded for validating blocks, and this is typical of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But now you're starting to see some of these blockchains move to a proof of stake. Blockchain essentially is where you have, as I said, a historical chain of records of blocks. Recently emerging now is DAG, and this protocol is slightly different because you only need to validate transactions in there, so it's faster. And you've seen blockchains like IOTA and Hashgraph come up, which are offering higher speeds, which is more supportive of use cases like IoT. So if we could move to the next one. I've tried to do that as quickly as I can.
Yeah, it's okay. We still have 13 minutes.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh, let's get moving. So economy of tokens, we sort of touched on this. So the economy of tokens really is something that is happening. So you'll know about Bitcoin and Ethereum and these tokens here, but now we're starting to see a lot of companies generate their own tokens, and and this is allowing for new transactions of value based on these tokens. One of the popular things you're seeing now is non-functional tokens, which is where people are tokenizing paintings. But ultimately, we work at our tokenizing office space and transacting that. So the token economy seems to be something that has taken off in the crypto world. But more importantly, we're now seeing real companies start to look at tokens. Some of the headlines there. PayPal saying that they'll take payment in tokens and allow payment in tokens. More importantly, in industry, Tesla are now saying you can buy a Tesla Tesla car in Bitcoin. So yeah, we're starting to see that move in industry. Next one, Sjanie. I'll try and move through these as quickly as I can. Digital identity, I think we've already covered. Let's go to the next one. Blockchain supply chains I've partly covered, but some of the real examples, successful examples of this are the Maersk IBM trade lens, which is a supply chain for shipping and logistics, and with some trade finance in there, using the blockchain to automate the contracting and documentation of that. And you're starting to see a lot more blockchain-based supply chain provenance solutions come up in industry, where essentially you have a number of parties who are involved in supply chains, and the blockchain providing a immutable layer of trust for the data along that supply chain. And the beauty of it is with smart contracts and wallets and tokens and payments, you can actually automate the payment as well based on certain conditions in that supply chain being met. Next one.
Yeah, and vaccination, I was thinking, it's also an example, isn't it, David, for the supply chain, which is a current example.
I think it's a really good example with the vaccines needing to be kept at a certain temperature. The blockchain provides an immutable ledger for that data to be entered through from manufacturing through the distribution and logistics process to the vaccine being given. And we're starting to see it used in that area as well. Indeed, we're involved. So
yeah, especially this
example.
month. Yeah, the cyber talks especially talk about the consequences of pandemic. So therefore, I thought it was useful to mention. But we continue.
Yes, DeFi. So all of the things we've mentioned in blockchains. Blockchain started off in finance. And it's going in a circle to end in finance. And one of the most exciting things in blockchain at the moment is what we call decentralized finance. Essentially, where you have functions that would be carried out by a bank, like lending and investing, being done, and returns being done by an algorithm on the blockchain. The most important part of this is two components of blockchain that are important to this. Number one is a token, so tokenization of assets, and the next one is the smart contract to execute it. And those two elements are being fed into blockchain protocols. Some of the most popular ones, Uniswap, which provides a sort of exchange of tokens, and then you have things like consensus. You've got something like Yearn and others that are springing up, Compound, that are springing up to provide returns on those tokens in the crypto world. So watch out for this in industries. It's not entering the enterprise world yet, even though this week there was an organization that raised 121 million in Europe, issuing bonds on the blockchain. But it's not, decentralized finance is not popular at the moment, but in industry, but it will start to take off. And we go to the next one. So I suppose we've described Industry 4.0, and we've described some of the key things of blockchain. And I suppose the question is, how do these things come together? How do we see blockchain playing a part in industry? And I think these key components of the wallet, the wallet holding identity, the wallet holding payment credentials, the wallet holding preferences, is critical. And then you have the smart contracts that execute automatically terms between entities. The blockchain, which is a trust element, and the digital identity of organizations and indeed their devices, starts to play a real important role in terms of automating the interactions and any value transactions between these things. So factories to supply chains to paying workers, to paying for data, to selling data, to buying connectivity. All of this can be automated with the blockchain providing a layer of trust, but also providing a layer of automation. And this is what we're starting to see in terms of examples of this. We have the 5G factory, but we're also starting to see, as we mentioned, blockchain-based supply chains allow new dynamic entrants to supply chains to fill gaps. And I think going forwards, that peer-to-peer transaction between between devices and organizations and business will start to move things forward. So we just go to the next slide. I'm just conscious we're running out of time.
Oh yes, apparently we still have some extra time, David. So we
Okay.
don't need to be. We still have another 10 minutes.
Okay, no problem. So in terms of what we've been doing, we showed the slide earlier of the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Things, as I said, we're in the next 5 to 7 years, we're expecting 70 billion connected devices. So if we look at the world population at roughly 8 billion now, just under, you've got roughly 10 times the amount of things connected as you do people. And it's a big opportunity. It's also a big challenge, and a big driver for change and automation in industry. And as we look at this, our stance has been to say, okay, we've spent a lot of time connecting devices and producing data. Going forwards with the devices increasing, with technology increasing, with use cases becoming more dynamic, we're expecting devices to interact more. So no longer will devices and sensors just produce data and send it to their owner, the entity that owns them. But we're expecting that in the future, and even now, that devices will start to have to interact with other devices. So in the previous picture, we showed drones, robots, etc. You're starting to see these devices actually speak directly to each other, and they can actually transact with each other as well. So our tact on that has been to enhance our SIM connectivity, to include number one, a link to the blockchain. So as well as providing connectivity, in terms of connecting devices, and providing that, we're also providing a connection to the blockchain via our SIM card. And with that, we're also providing a wallet via our SIM card and a digital identity via our SIM card. And what does that mean? It means that any device, with this form of connectivity, can connect to a blockchain. They can be part of supply chains. They can authenticate into supply chains. They can authenticate into manufacturing processes. They can authenticate into other business and logistics processes automatically. And they can transact connecting to the blockchain to execute smart contracts. So this is sort of our position on it. If you look at the bottom, it says connectivity plus trust, i.e. blockchain, plus payment capability plus marketplace equals the economy of things. And we think that a key development of the Industry 4.0 will be this economy of things. It will be devices transacting with devices automatically, peer-to-peer, using the blockchain as the anchor of trust, using, I forgot to mention, sort of cryptography. So we have a private key in the SIM, which essentially gives the devices the means to digitally sign the transactions. And we're really excited that this could be the future of extending that automation boundary If we look practically 70 billion devices, there's not enough of us to sit in between them with smartphones validating. So this sort of automation is something that will need to happen going forward. And then we go to the last slide now.
Yes.
Okay, so we just wanted to maybe look at some of the use cases that you can have. So I think number one.
Before you continue, David, can you please explain DAB? What does it mean? The transaction lifecycle on the DAB, the digital asset broker, I guess.
Yeah, it's digital asset broker. So it's just a product we have in this area. This is really looking at smart cities. So if you look in there, you've got the connected factory, digital supply chains, network as a sensor, which is another initiative where within a network, if you put sensors at the end of them, essentially you've got massive reach in terms of the sort of information you can collect and exchange. You've got connected car, connected fleet, connected person, connected organization, geolocation, shared mobility, smart buildings. These are all the things that are happening now. And what we're saying is where you put that on a blockchain, you're then able to have trusted data sharing. If you combine that with IoT, you're able to have what we call asset as a service. So where machines in manufacturing and industrial processes, can be identified immutably using the private key connecting the machine and the SIM card, that machine can sign that it is the machine, but also we can verify the output of that machine, and giving rise to new forms of financing. You've got, as I mentioned, automated peer-to-peer transactions. You've got interoperable supply chains from thing to thing, from ecosystem to ecosystem. We're only able to do this because the blockchain is able to act as a middleware of trust between those supply chains, between those companies, between those ecosystems in a dynamic way. You don't have to go through 6 months of contracting. You can just use the blockchain to provide that and the necessary validation and security that comes with that. I'd say some exciting times going forwards, and we're starting to see some of this come through in recent years. One of the things we maybe forgot to mention, Sjanie, is 5G and LPWA. So two important, probably the most important aspects of this for us. But 5G providing low latency, high speed communication on the move, which allows things like AR, VR to be possible, and also other forms of automation to be possible that are supporting some of these use cases, as well as blockchain. So 5G, launched. I think we launched last year or within the last year and a half. Very, very important in terms of providing high-speed connectivity everywhere. And LPWA is really about low power, wide area network. So this is where you've got devices that don't need to be powered and connected all the time. And LPWA provides a means of doing that so that it's not draining the power for that device. And they're two critical connectivity enablers to the Industry 4.0. But we feel that when you combine blockchain, IoT, and AI with 5G, you have a powerful enabler to take Industry 4.0 forwards. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, David. So, Pritama, will we now take the questions?
Yes, thank you so much, David and Sjanie. It was such an informative session, and we have lots of questions pouring in actually. But before we go for the questions, we just have a few things to remind our audience. So this session is in sync with EC Council Certified Blockchain Professional Certification, which is a certification that covers everything you'll need to kickstart your career into the blockchain world. It covers the fundamentals such as crypto assets, blockchain mining to advance the concepts such as IoT, blockchain, security in blockchain, and much more. It also trains you hands-on on the practical training to solve industry use cases, build your decentralized applications. And anyone with the EC Council CBP certification is eligible for 48,000 plus job vacancies globally with an average salary of 90,000 per annum. So do let us know if you would like to opt for these courses. Our poll will be live. Do let us know your opinion in this. Also, put in your questions and we can now ask those to David and Sjanie. Okay, let's move on. So there's a question from Nitin Verma. He says, how is IoT security processing in blue team and red team activity? David?
Sorry,
answer that question.
Sorry, I didn't get the question, guys.
How is IoT security progressing in the blue team and red team activity?
Yeah, I'd have to defer that to our security guys. I mean, what I do know is that blockchain security, is so in terms of IoT, one of the reasons why we've been successful is that we're able to use the cryptography associated with our telco network, and there's there's a number of encryptions that we employ to execute that. But in terms of the blockchain, what it does is kind of guard against the DDoS attacks by allowing or supporting distributed databases, and also the distributed ledger with that. So in terms of security, we believe that the blockchain based security, by decentralizing, can mitigate some of the security issues associated with IoT. In terms of the specifics of that, though, I'd have to maybe get back.
One, become a blockchain developer. Where do you start?
Sjanie, do you want? Yeah, I'll take that one again. So it's interesting. I mean, for one of the most important languages in blockchain is Java, and for smart contracts, Solidity. I've seen many a developer with Java be able to make the move into programming in blockchain very quickly. So I'd say learn Java, learn Solidity for smart contracts, and that would be a good way forward. You got to remember that blockchains, largely use some of the same technology. So there's still APIs, that are used. There's still front end applications that are developed. There's still databases that are part of the solutions that blockchain supports. All of the skills that developers may already have are good fits, to blockchain development, but the sort of killers, or the sort of important things are obviously the smart contracts in Solidity, and also the Java for actually programming in the ledger. So that would be my start. Learn Java, learn Solidity, and get involved, volunteer for a project. There's a lot of demand now.
Okay. Sure, thank you. Another one by Kasturi is, what is an interoperable supply chain?
Okay, yeah. So interoperable just means that you have supply chains that can basically swap out elements of that supply. So if you think about it, just think about what we've been through in the pandemic with PPE. In most countries, and now with vaccine supply. And part of it is because the contracts for supplying need to be written in stone, and you're dependent on one, in a lot of cases, one supplier to make it. You don't have the ability, if that supplier can't make it, or one element of that can't make it, to swap it or interoperate for another supplier. And auction that element of the supply chain. So interoperable just basically means there's a supply chain where you have a dynamic element that allows elements of the supply where one fails to be filled by another very quickly, automatically.
Thank you. Another one is, does one has to be working in security for some time to get transitioned into blockchain career-wise?
No. So I think one of the beauties of blockchain is that some people who aren't even from a technical background have managed to make the tradition into blockchain, and there's different areas of it. So you have blockchain-based security, you have blockchain development. As I was saying, you've got the areas around blockchain in terms of application, UI, UX, wallet development, payments. That all come into it. But then there's also the business modeling side. There's revenues, there's organizational side. So there's always, it's a business like anything else, and it's got business models attached to it. So there's a number of areas where you can get involved. I think security experts or cybersecurity is a key part of blockchain. I think it's very easy for someone who has an aptitude and/or experience in that to make the transition.
Sure. Another question is a very legal question, actually. Is blockchain legal in Gulf countries?
So what I can say is that one of the leading countries for blockchain adoption is Dubai. And you saw the Dubai 2020 vision and the sort of Dubai blockchain government vision for 2020, and they've really been leading the way in blockchain and other technologies. And I believe are the first government to implement a lot of blockchain-based solutions as part of their governmental processes. So I would say definitely in Dubai, it's legal. If you're talking about the cryptocurrency side of blockchain, because there's two sides. You've got blockchain, the technology, which Dubai are using, and then you've got the cryptocurrencies, which is an application that runs on blockchain. In terms of cryptocurrencies, the legality of that and the regulations differ. What I would refer you to are the FATF papers on cryptocurrency regulation and cryptocurrency exchanges, which could be more informative about the different areas. But in terms of blockchain technology, Dubai are leading the way and are definitely setting a great example.
Sure. Nishant says, actually very connected, AWS and Google Cloud Solutions are fine to implement blockchain? Are they fine to
Yeah, I
implement the
mean,
blockchain?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what has been important to to blockchain adoption are organizations like ours and other big hyperscaler organizations really taking the technology seriously, but more important, making it more accessible. So if you look at AWS, etc., absolutely fine to have that approach, and indeed most of the leading solutions and industries are using it.
Sure. Now Kishwar has a very technical questions, which is, with central banks around the world dabbling with blockchain technology, do you think we will see more nationally regulated hybrid currencies coming into play?
Great question. Great question. So one of the what you're talking about is what we call central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. And indeed, very timely, the Bank of England last week announced that it had a 2-year program to implement the digital currency. We're seeing the same thing in the US and other governments around the world. So definitely the UK, definitely European Union have set targets to look at this and explore the central bank digital currencies, as have the USA. And I believe there's other governments around the world that have and their central banks that have set similar targets. And the reason for it is that again, having a digital currency and blockchain technology and a central bank digital currency can be implemented without blockchain. Yeah, that's the first thing I want to say. But having a sort of blockchain-based digital currency allows for a lot of automation and a lot more transparency and a lot more. There's a lot more you can do with it from a central bank point of view. So yeah, it's one of the hottest areas, central bank digital currencies, and let's see where it goes. But what I can say for certain, UK, Europe, US have made commitments to this.
Sure. Now, the question here from Hassan is how regulatory bodies are responding to blockchain and growing fintech companies that are using blockchain technologies. Now, this differs from country to country, right? The
Correct. So what we saw, what we've seen recently is Turkey, where a lot of, well, a few exchanges, I won't say have disappeared with the contents of the exchange, but there's been issues with exchanges, and they have taken a hard regulatory approach to that. On the other hand, we've seen the FATF, who have, I think 2 years ago they wrote a paper, sort of talking about cryptocurrencies and the exchanges needing to go through KYC and needing to adhere to the travel rule. But going forwards, they recently, again, 2-3 weeks ago, issued something extending that into decentralized exchanges. So I spoke about DeFi, and one of the key things in DeFi is having a decentralized exchange. So there's no person in there or no organization. Banking's being done by an algorithm, and they've said that doesn't matter, and you still need to have somebody who's responsible. So they've provided some guidance to that. Recently, but then in the US, there's an approach which is saying, okay, let's see where DeFi runs, and we'll start to look at it afterwards. So you're seeing different regulatory approaches, but I would say again, just check out the FATF latest update to cryptocurrencies for the latest regulations. Because most of the banks and countries will follow that.
Okay. I think last two questions. What are the current loopholes in IoT that the industries are struggling with? Any loopholes in the industry?
Loopholes. So IoT, like any technology, is evolving very, very quickly. And I'd like to say that it's we cope well with the security and scale aspect of that. There's million. I mean, even with our organization, we have 130 million connected devices on our platform, and there's similar, worldwide, it's running into billions of devices, IoT devices. So I'd like to say, from a security point of view, it's done well. If you look at the vision we have for value exchange, then they become more of a target, and that's why it's important to have solid cryptography and blockchain supporting that, to make sure that we've got the security associated with it. So, for example, we look to have secure elements and private keys as part of it. But I'd say, in terms of loopholes, it's a growing industry, but we haven't seen anything significant at this stage yet. But that doesn't mean it doesn't mean that security doesn't need to evolve as more is done with IoT devices.
Right. The last question by Heiko is, do you see any interference of blockchain technology usage, for example, contract supply chain management and financial management, that's Bitcoin, or is it independent?
So could you repeat the question? I missed that one.
Okay. Do you see any interference of blockchain technology usage, for example, contract supply chain management and financial management? Is there any interference between the two, or is it independent?
I mean, I see them merging. So I see blockchain more and more being interwoven with supply chain management, contract management, where you have two organizations that don't trust each other, which is generally how business works. You do have trust in terms of contracts that take a while to set up, but where you have this sort of new dynamic business that is coming up, I'm seeing that blockchain will work to support these, and indeed, you'll see that these use cases will actually be applications that involve a blockchain. One of the recent things I was looking at was insurance, and now you've got this concept of decentralized insurance trying to emerge, where essentially you have entities that can come together to provide liquidity, i.e. a pool to cover insurance, and then you have and they can stake their money and get a return on it. And then you have that pool being used to provide, for example, insurance for smart contracts and other things. So what you're seeing is that you're having a lot of the traditional functions springing up as blockchain applications to provide some sort of choice to users. So I fully expect the blockchain will start to have applications that support that. Whether it's better than the current applications, we need to look at that on a case-by-case basis.
Sure. Just one last question for me, I think. This is by Ramon, but I also want to know more about it. What is the important advantages of 5G technology? Some of the people need to upgrade their mobile phones to access 5G. What do you recommend?
Sjanie, do you want to cover? Do you want me to cover the one?
Yeah, well, it's so for a while they will be, those technology will be working alongside. So speed is one of the things, but especially for industry, the lower latency is really important. And I wouldn't say it's so much in this context about the devices, but it's more about the handsets. But this is more of the industrial devices where it's really important that the latency is so much lower that that you can also have quality of service. So currently in the mobile network, we cannot give you a guaranteed quality of service because it's the radio. But in 5G is the first time we can do it, and the speed and at least the much lower latency will make that the devices in the factories can really become a part of the total production process. But perhaps you want to add something to it, David?
No, I think that's perfect. Yeah. I mean, I just say I've just got a new 5G phone. So
yes, but it depends, of course, what you do. But on the device itself, it's yeah, of course, it makes a difference if you want to do big data transfers and with volume of data. But in this context, it's more important, I think, for the industry on the other devices.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys.
Remote essence. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just I think this question, we still have more questions that are coming in, and we will address them one-on-one, guys. Or you can write to us at connect@ecouncil.org for more questions. But thank you so much, David and Sjanie. It was such an informative session, and I think we all conclude, the participants as well as us, the organizers, that we need to have one more round of blockchain webinar with you guys on a different aspect of it, obviously, where we can discuss more in detail. There are some of the questions which they need small details about. So thank you again. It was such an informative session for beginners, especially. We have a lot of people who want to start their career in blockchain, and this webinar does help them a lot. Thank you so much for being on board. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was our pleasure. All ours. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of our participants for joining in. Thank you. You may now disconnect the line.